Okay, we're going to go through some case studies. I started with commercial and just some of the examples of accounts. Newmark manages about 500 million square feet. RFR is one of the largest with Adams property managers in New York. We've done the Rockefeller Center, worked with Brandywine, 10 corporate campuses for MetLife. The first Morgan Stanley high-rise in the US was the corporate headquarters in Times Square, and even Tower Bridge here is over in Conshohocken. So it starts with Morgan Stanley. I'll just give you an example. When we had the 15 versus the 12 watts, going down in their exit stairs was the place where we started. It's great to have cases that have been multiple years, illuminated, no failures. They love the product, and now they're looking at the rollout into the next level. So for those that want to pause, we can refer them to some references quickly in the industry. With government, whether it's the Navy, we're on our 28th Navy ship, Quantico for the Marines, the first VA hospital, work with the National Park, and then for the Forest Service, and even some early testing with Postal Service. This drives me a little crazy because we did this 2 years ago, coming up this new year. And there are 150 more to go. So the government is slow to act. We all knew that. But I didn't think it was going to be like 2 years slow. So, when you're talking about cutting their bill in half, and this was in the $100,000, range, all installed, and you're saving, half of their energy for the back of the house, not the $1 million retrofit, just the mechanical rooms, the stuff that was running 24/7. I thought they'd look at the utility bill after the first month and the phone was just going to light up. 2,700 facilities, including the clinics. 150 major medical centers. I referenced the DOE earlier. I'm not going to pick on the DOE, but they are not aggressively saying to the administration, change the lights. They're looking at solar, they're looking at a lot of renewables. They're taking that wait-and-see approach, and it's our taxpayer dollars. So this is a prime example of dysfunction. We know the sad stories with the VA, not being able to take care of our soldiers. That money could help add nurses to care for people that are really in need. So this one is a particular sore spot for me because we created the solution, not a phone call for a failure on the light, right? This stuff works. So it is amazing to think that out of all the chatter of green initiatives, that the action is lower than the talk. When it comes to automotive, we've worked with some of the major players in the space. And again, deep dive case studies are all on our website for most of these too. With BMW, two by two, 2x4, pendant, high bay in the service center. Big comprehensive retrofits. So in some cases like the VA, back of the house, mechanical rooms, the stuff you don't see. In the case of a car dealership, the color, the way the aesthetics had to match the need for them to have a gorgeous looking showroom was really important. For restaurants, some brands you've heard of, hopefully you don't just eat here. With Burger King, looking at the illumination started with, again, linear. It included then the panels. Again, solution first, looking at the business needs. In this case, the customer was not comfortable fronting the dollars. They did not want to sign off on a 5 or 7 year on-balance sheet loan, but they liked the lights. We ended up coming up with a 6-month program where we would front the cost and they would pay over the 6 months as they saw the savings from the lights. So it wasn't like every dollar of savings was paying for the lights, because the payback was in that 2-year window, but the pain was mitigated on an out-of-pocket. This is that sort of creativity and the compromise I've referenced a couple times today, which is find the balance of what can work for the business, not just a go, no-go on lights. Brett's Beer I referenced, gorgeous big facility, over 300,000 square feet, and they're going to save $101,000, every year. It's going to add up to, some million in savings. This is a tremendous story because we have onboard occupancy sensors that at the speed of a forklift truck are instant on. So unlike the metal halides that were the 400 or 450 watts with the ballast, I'm down to 174. Big difference, right? But some of them are just off. So how about 0 watts, right, during portions of the day? We are also, with data mapping, now offering something in the new year where we can track digitally the run times in those fixtures to a dashboard, where as a building owner or manager, whether it's a retail store, where we dim some little tiny bit, even 10%, when there's no one in there, or off in the case of a beer distributor, traffic flow mapping of how your business is operated. So now all of a sudden the LEDs start to do some intelligent things. We start to have photo cells with skylights where in certain areas on a bright sunny day we automatically dim back. We start to work with demand response where from 3 p.m. in the afternoons till 7 p.m. in the summer months, the peak load is so massive because homeowners are turning on air conditioning and lights and people are still at work. Sometimes there's not enough electricity in the grid. Shaving down 10-15% on the dimming through the external driver in the system. So this becomes building intelligence, not even lighting intelligence. Canadian Tire up in Canada is the size of like a Walmart. They're the big players up there. Starting again with the 24/7. Getting them moving in the right direction and delamping from, this was the case where we came in with 4 16-watt tubes and we're replacing 8 32 watts. So we go from 12, 16, 18, 22, 29, a whole range of options. So again, you can choose the level of density of the light. For central parking, this was Must Development, which is one of the big Brooklyn Renaissance plazas, 1.2 million square feet. Having before and afters for safety, instead of that crazy yellow color, the brighter white lights. Aesthetics, safety, savings, all those factors. Okay, I want to show you these. This is an incandescent 60-watt bulb. It will run in foot candles at, say, my shoulder height, something in the nature of 19 or 20. The big dogs, the Crees, the Philips, the Sylvanias, have 13, 11, and now down to 9.5 watt solutions. We have an 8-watt bulb through our strategic partnership with the German company DK LED, and I'm very proud of this particular one because for homeowners as well as hotels and in the ceilings of any form of hospitality, whether it's restaurants or hotels, now we're talking about 40 versus that 20. So what we have is the ability to do incredible things with the incandescent. The CFL, remember, is typically 14 coming off of 60. And so how this technology, unfolds is really an interesting story for quick adoption of something you can screw in if any of you are interested, I brought the examples where we take apart the competitors like the Crees of the world, like the GEs, you know, like the, here's a Philips product that are typically more directional. Is this Saturn-like ring that gives the light directional down and lateral light, as well as up into the side. So these are the considerations, you know, as the world gets more complicated. The irony maybe is that the biggest players don't have the best solutions, and so those of us that are in the trenches have to work harder to communicate choice and show side-by-side examples. Measurement is the key to management, and the ongoing measurement and verification becomes a great story too. So how you get to smart metering and dashboards becomes an incredible play. With the controls, I referenced the occupancy sensors dimming, the light harvesting, the demand response, all things you should ask for. Because although you may not today want to put them in the ceiling, wiring and on the wall, by having external drivers or smart control capacity, you could choose to add those features. The analogy I use is like satellite radio in the car. You may not subscribe because you don't really care about Howard Stern or the country music playing everywhere you go. But it's nice to know that your car has it built into the dashboard so that if you chose to subscribe, you could. And so this is where we talk about smart enabled technology. So buying some of the less expensive technology might not give you choices in the future that you would like to engage in. Warranties, look for the strongest warranties, read the fine print. Some of the warranties literally restrict coverage based on the runtime. We have a 10-year, 60,000-hour warranty. We were the first to go to 10. Last year, we were the first in 2009 to go to 5 years. Everyone else was at 1 or 2. We pushed the industry to a high degree. But some of the asterisks might be 10-year warranty if you read the socket lamp bulbs on the Home Depot front with the Crees of the world, and it's like 3 hours a day. Well, thank you for that. Now, what if it's in my kitchen, which is 6? And how do they police that? So it seems very, very strange. US-based tech, the drill down that's interesting. The energy economy versus other market sectors, the energy reduction versus production, right? Lights over solar. LEDs versus other types of lighting like the T5s, tubes versus other types, and then US versus foreign products. So lots of choices. This is why we acknowledge that it's hard, and that asking to see samples in your ceiling and total cost of ownership studies is your absolute right and the privilege of being the buyer to really look at where it makes sense and what makes sense today. And then you pause on some of the other things, but at least start. We manufacture out of Boyertown, Pennsylvania. And it's a great facility. People want tours, we do them all the time. And there's a ripple effect for the jobs. So not our employees necessarily doing component manufacturing. So with a aluminum extruding partner, they have employees. We are buying from a US company the aluminum that is the heat sink for our product versus the polycarbonate. Well, that helps dissipate the heat and keep the diodes cool. We're looking at the fulfillment and the transportation. I don't own any trucks, right? But there are jobs that are created. Every day, people are moving our product up and down the East Coast. We picked Boyertown, by the way. If you look at the satellite map of the world, the DC New York corridor is the brightest spot, and we're 2.5 hours in either direction. Happy accident that I went to Penn and lived here, so that was pretty cool too. But like the idea of this ripple effect is something that I think also the administration didn't necessarily get their heads entirely around. The multiplier for manufacturing is so massive relative to service industries because all these things get done, including the marketing company and the PR firms and everyone else that's engaged with what we do. Legal services for the patents. It was 3 years. Ours was granted. Blank Rome's our patent attorney. Just in the last month. Okay, module 3. We'll get into the financing. Questions on that round?
Is there going to be a copy of this presentation available?
I'm happy to share it electronically.
You mentioned high bays are like a sweet spot.
Yeah. I can make high bays work with the lowest cost of electricity and a single shift. That's an anomaly in the scenario, because I'll just tell you the quick math. 450 watts down to 174 is savings that's just under 300. If you run the 3,000 hours, you are talking about saving something in the nature of the 300 times the 3 factor of 3,000 hours is you have to take the K, the 1,000 out, 900 kilowatt hours a year saved. So even at 10 cents, and that's 90 bucks, I can make it work because the aux sensor will have them off for some period of time, lifting that savings into that 130, 140 range. If you multiply that by 3, I've got something in the $360 allowable. They're kicking off typically a $150 rebate, and they're like $500 fixture. That's the worst. That's like the single shift, low kWh. Now, if it's only 6 hours and it's in Kansas, maybe I'm stretching it to 3.5 years, but it's like, it's a rare bird that we can't make the high bays work coming off a metal halide. That's like any car is better than your 80s station wagon. Literally any car you can buy today, including, probably a Humvee has, better gas mileage.
So around here, would that be typically a 2-year payback?
I can get inside the 2.5, and it's a function of your, again, runtime and honestly, the aux sensor. If you're using them all the time, what we might find is the blended savings over a facility really works because certain aisles are only on half the time and others are full throttle. Because if I set my timer at 5 minutes, so when you're in the aisle, it obviously doesn't go off the second you leave, there's a lag. So if the forklift truck is in there every 4.5 minutes, the lights will never go off, right? But I can set it also to 10, 15-minute cycles, whatever it is. So the point is, if you're running activity in the aisle twice an hour, then we can crank it back to the 5 minutes. You might only have 10 minutes of illumination in 60 minutes. So right now, 450 watts is not down to 174. It's down to 20% of 174. It's like 30 watts versus 450. So when we have these discussions, and I'm not going to go much deeper than this today, it's an exciting opportunity if you're selling a car to have someone pull in to the lot with an 80 station wagon, right? You know that you can find them a solution. Now they may not buy your car, but because we represent so many other high bays and solutions that we show, we obviously favor ours, but it's the kind of thing where if it's made in America and you can trust the reliability and a 10-year warranty, we win those conversations in many cases.
If we were to specify your particular product, right, independent LED, number such and such, the bidders for the project Who would they buy it from?
So, great question. Quantico looked at all the products on the market, and the Marines picked us. They went to bid. There were dozens of calls that came in. Haven 365, a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business out of Northern Virginia. The guys out in Sacramento that have done work for the military. So we have ourselves 100 plus authorized resellers that have signed on to rep our product. We then get from the web, in any given day, phone calls and emails that say, I have a customer interested in what you make, I'd like the pricing at wholesale, or end users say, can I buy direct? What we do is typically align, if it's outside of the New York, Philly, DC, and metro area, one of the resellers. So we went to bid, and you review the specs, and we have spec guides and all kinds of things. So, for example, over 95 lumens per watt, thermal management, certain criteria, along with warranty over 7 years, something that lets other products in. So it's awesome. If someone's interested in putting our product number the way Quantico did in the bid, that's not the better for us. We're going to get paid. We almost don't care who buys, right? Wholesale. The other way to do a spec is a performance spec, where you call out criteria. It will be about performance. I want to have wood panel levels at a certain minimum. I want to have lumen levels at a certain minimum. So there are lots of ways to run the spec. And the short answer is, many companies that bid, we have no bias on who would bid. They don't have to be a pre-signed player. The signed resellers and reps get training from us. They go through programs such as this and learn much, much more detail about the product. But we're happy to take a check for just that money.
So we do it so quick.
100%. Now, we've been careful not to sell direct in areas where we have reseller relationships, and that's the balancing act of manufacturing. So if the manufacturer starts to sell too much direct, then you undermine the ability of the reps to make some of their money. But in our backyard, all day long. How about I do a 2-minute quick on the financing? This is the very fast closer. On 100,000 square feet, if they were spending 94, we can bring it to 31. Great, right? I'm literally cutting that number down in operating expense by 60 grand. There were questions about maintenance for the replacement and the recycling costs. That's built into our software with maintenance labor, bulb replacement savings. So that's a little gravy. That's added advantages, including air conditioning load reduction, to the straight kWh savings. The softer side of that math is where we have to roll up our sleeves with the owners and actually dig into what they're spending on the maintenance. Do they pay someone an hourly rate to do it, or are they on a salary? Netted, you get to 71 grand. If it's $149,000 of product with 20,000 of, install, you're at 169. Without any help from Pico, no rebate in this scenario, you're still at 28 months on the payback, right? So the irony of the incentives is that they only make the solar and the other green initiatives work. You just physically don't want to do it without them. Here, the incentives are a bonus, not necessarily a requirement. And that's a good thing for the clean math works. Financing. If you don't have the 140 or 160 grand, zero money, take 5,300 out of the 5,900 in savings every month, pay the freight. If you want to stretch your mortgage to 60 months, 3,400, and now you're keeping in your pocket actual cash positive. So for a school, for a YMCA that's looking at, buying things like, basketballs, books for students, some companies need, and institutions need cash. What we also show is the deduction cash value with EPAC coming back online. And then the property value increase is interesting based on the net operating income at a cap rate of 10. So if you are a real estate owner, selling a building creates an opportunity where some have come to us and said, I want to change the lights on the buildings we're planning on selling, because we're going to see that net operating income lift, and we're going to have a capitalization rate that's going to be higher, make some more money. Okay, the balance sheet challenge we've talked about in financing. And operating leases. This is new, and then I'll close with the next few slides. The lighting service contract means don't buy the lights. So we started pioneering this idea of a service where we would like to illuminate your facility over a certain number of years. So you have a service for the internet. We used to buy things like modems and routers. We used to actually buy an answering machine. Now we have a call feed service called, Answer Me, whatever they charge at Comcast. So the idea here is to turn it into a maintenance service versus a product. I'm just going to click through with the SBA and the things that are available. There's lots of opportunities. I'll end with this one, which is no shortage of illumination opportunities here in the U.S. So it's a big country with a lot of bright spots, and I think that all of us can get behind this idea of starting to find the lights that make the most sense today. Great.
Quick question, I may have missed it when we stepped out for a minute, but do you have anything at your company when it comes down to street lighting?
So we have partners that make the street lighting, the exterior. Happy to introduce you to the ones we've vetted, some US, some imported. The complexity is can replacement where the head either gets a retrofit kit versus replacing the whole head, and that is a nuance with different height lights all the way up to the big, 80-plus footers for the highway versus street lights. So the answer is yes, it's inside of our solutions group, and we're happy to point you in the right direction, because that's part of the solution, right? No one wants to cut 10 checks. They want to find partners to help solve their lighting and operating needs, and we can be an ally for you.
Yeah, I know I've worked a lot with government, and the costs were very high, we'll say, 3 or 4 years ago.
You'll be surprised today. And I think that's why a lot of people waited, and those would be one of those scenarios where we would show you, if there are some that are slated to be changed out, bucket truck can be $300, right, in a day. So maybe there are 10% of them in Q1 that get changed to LEDs. And in the spirit of that rolling retrofit, you make a plan that as they fail or predict failure, you get ahead of it. So you're not necessarily doing it all.